As Christians talk about the creation days, it's very often presented as the only way to look at those days in Genesis 1 is that they're 24-hour days, that's the only way to interpret day there. I've listened enough to know that there are different meanings of the word day, even in biblical Hebrew. What are some of those meanings, Hugh?
Well, almost every Hebrew noun has multiple literal definitions, and that's certainly true of the word yom that's translated day. It has 4 different literal definitions. Part of the daylight hours, say from noon to 3 p.m.
Okay, so you got part of the daylight hours.
All of the daylight hours.
So that's sun up to sundown.
Correct, and then you got a 24-hour period, and then a long but finite period of time. And whereas in English, we have over a dozen words for an epoch of time, in biblical Hebrew, the only word you got for a long, finite period of time is the word yom. There is no other option to describe a long period of time.
So when you're going in and looking at the Genesis account and you're doing your exegesis there, the key question is not, okay, day means this, it's what does day mean in this context?
Yeah, which of the 4 literal definitions is implied in the context that you see there?
How many of those different definitions are utilized in the Genesis creation accounts?
3. I mean, for example, in Genesis 2:4, it uses the word yom, translated day, to refer to the entire creation week.
So that would be day as a long but finite period of time.
Right. And then you got a reference to the day and the night.
Right.
And so
that's the daylight portion.
Right. And then the 24-hour period. So there you got 3.
Okay, so you got 3.
The only one that's missing is the a portion of the day.
Portion of the daylight. So the issue is, as we're looking at this, not this is the only definition. It's what is the proper definition. And I think the fact that the 7th day isn't closed out has relevance in what are the length of the creation days. Because if the 7th day might be longer, that would imply that the earlier 6 days are also longer.
That struck me the first time I looked at Genesis in any serious way, as I saw an evening and a morning for each of the 6 creation days. I expected to see the same thing for day 7, and it's not there. There is no evening and morning for the 7th day. Now, not knowing, when I was a young man, what those Hebrew words meant, I recognize at a minimum it meant that the day had a start point and an end point. And the lack of that for the 7th day told me it's not yet finished. Well,
couldn't you argue, though, that maybe the Hebrew author just didn't see the need to close it out, or write that it was closed out, but it's still meant to be a 24-hour day period?
Well, that didn't strike me at all, Jeff, because I notice how carefully the text is written. It talks about a day, then there's an evening and a morning.
Right.
And so just seeing how meticulously the text is laid out, and it was so, and God declared it good. So the fact that there was a missing evening and morning for the 7th day told me that this is something that's communicating. Right. Then as you read on in the Bible, you find many other references to the 7th day as an unfinished event.
So it'd be like Psalm 104 or 105, where the Israelites are told that they could enter into God's rest, implying or referencing back to the 7th creation day.
Psalm 95 and John 5, where Jesus talks about he and his Father at rest, even though he's performing a miracle on the Sabbath. And then probably the most extensive text would be Hebrews 4, where we're exhorted to live our lives in such a way as followers of Jesus Christ that we will enter into God's 7th day. So it's making the point that the 7th day presently is existing and will continue to exist into the future.
Well, I think that's an important point, because if the 7th day isn't a 24-hour period, then certainly the earlier 6 aren't either.